the importance of educating yourself about malware. So in today's world, we depend on internet for our day-to-day tasks. For example, for our education, be it online classes, then online banking, sending emails using social networking sites, online shopping, entertainment purposes. For all these things, we are using internet. So as we go on using internet, we need to know about the various malwares which can pose threat to us and how we can safeguard ourselves from these threats. So so while using internet, what are the primary risks that you face? What you need to be aware of? The first thing is malware. If you remember in our previous session, we talked about social engineering and how we should avoid it. So in most of the social engineering attacks, they send you a link which has a malware in it. So this is the next step, continuation from the previous one. So because of that, we are talking about malware. So malware is short form for malicious software. So the purpose of malware is that the malware is software which is designed to infiltrate the victim's computer and get information from your computer. So there are three types of malware. One is viruses, ransomware, and worms. About ransomware, we are going to explain in detail about ransomware in the upcoming slides. So viruses, what are viruses? Viruses are just a type of malware which are most commonly found with an executable file. Suppose you're installing any pirated software, you're downloaded an exe file from the internet. So more often than not, viruses are also packaged with that exe file. And worms are also a type of viruses, but the difference between viruses and worms is that once a worm infects your PC or your computer, it can replicate itself in your local network. For example, if in your one laptop is infected with a worm, the worm can automatically replicate itself and spread it across your network. So your another PC may also be infected with a worm if one PC in your network is infected. Now we come to ransomware. So ransomware is a very dangerous, you may say, virus, because what it does is technically hijacks your computer and it takes hold of all your information. So basically what happens is it takes hold of all your information and you get a message that we have access to your data. If you want your data back, you need to pay so and so amount on this cryptocurrency network. So the most common ransomware is also known as WannaCry. So WannaCry has impacted many organizations worldwide, not just individual users. That's why this is very serious issue, because this ransomware has also affected many organizations. So this is what suppose you have your computer has been affected by ransomware. So it would look something like this: that your files have been encrypted, you have to pay certain amount of money in certain amount of time, and they are providing you a payment information. So it is very dangerous, as more often than not, your PC consists of many personal information. Suppose your photos and videos, your data or passwords, everything is stored in your computer. And if someone gets hold of this, they can spoof your identity with the data that they have gotten from your PC. So this is very serious issue. So here we have a list of the WannaCry attacks, the ransomware attacks carried around the world. So instead of showing this, I am going to show you this map, in which in India, Andhra Pradesh police was targeted by ransomware attacks. A company known as Telefonia in space was targeted. FedEx, a well-known company from US, was targeted, and also a well-known car brand Renault from France was targeted. So as we can see, ransomware itself is not specifically used to target individuals. It's used to target organizations. Why organizations? Suppose you have compromised one system and you can get many like crucial files and crucial information about an organization. Suppose I am a system admin working for, suppose, Renault, and my computer gets infected by ransomware. So attacker gets hold of all the crucial information about the company, maybe the personal information about the employees and all that sort of juicy stuff that the hackers are looking for. So let me tell you something about WannaCry itself. So it's a ransomware. So ransomware exploits a vulnerability in the server message block protocol in Windows. This exploit is named Eternal Blue. Just so you know how easy it is for attackers to perform this ransomware attack, there is a tool known as Eternal Scanner in Kali Linux. In just two to three steps, you can infect a target machine with ransomware. It's very simple, but this is a known issue, and ransomware is a known issue. So Microsoft has taken note to it, and they have immediately deployed the patches. So suppose if you are using a genuine copy of Windows 10 or Windows 7, and you have updated it regularly, so you don't have to worry about ransomware because Windows 10 automatically detects it. So the thing about ransomware is normally the viruses are packaged with an exe file, meaning there would be a malicious exe file in which the virus would be attached. But it but ransomware can also infect more such file extensions, more common file extensions like PPT, docx, zip files, and more uncommon file extensions like virtual machine files, VMDK, VDI. So from this slide, we can make out that ransomware can affect many of the file types, and it's very dangerous. So now that we talked about ransomware and malware and what threat does it poses, so now we have to know how we can safeguard ourselves from these ransomwares. So first of all, this is the most important thing. So many of us don't use a genuine copy of Windows. So what are the disadvantages if you don't use a genuine copy? First of all, you won't get Windows Defender, and you won't get the security updates. So if you have a genuine copy of Windows 10, you can keep your Windows 10 updated so that all the new security patches with all the new virus signatures that would be present in your machine. And also, in most of the systems, there is no antivirus present. In organization, almost all systems have antivirus in place, but for personal use, most people don't opt for antivirus as it costs some money. So, but let me tell you, over the years, Windows Defender is a very good antivirus. If you don't have any third party antivirus, you can also use Windows Defender, but for Windows Defender to work, you must first need to have a genuine copy. So this is the first and most important tip, that you must have a genuine copy of Windows and you must enable Windows Defender. As for no extra cost, it provides you amazing protection for your computer. And then we have to suppose you are an enterprise and you have information stored in database, for example some employee information, so you should regularly check the integrity of the information stored in that, like if the records have been altered in the database, or are there any suspicious entries that have been generated due to a virus or something. And also you may know that many of the browsers come with extensions, be it Mozilla Firefox or Chrome. All these browsers come with plugins installed. You can install plugins as per your liking, but many of these plugins are not approved by Microsoft, Firefox and Chrome itself. So they may pose a threat to your computer if you don't verify that. So my advice is that whenever you install a plugin from be it Firefox or Chrome, you should always verify that this plugin is secure. You should look for the reviews, and if the reviews are fine, then only you should install these plugins, because most of them could be malicious. And also there is something known as software restriction policies. Suppose you have installed a software, a program in your computer, and you don't want your program to access certain files, so you can define a software restriction policy on that. So what we should do is, suppose you have installed an app, a software in your computer, you should restrict the access to these two folders, percent app data percent and percent temp percent, because these are the two folders which are most commonly targeted by ransomware. So by applying software restriction policies, you ensure that none of your softwares that you have installed in your computer, they are not able to access these two folders. And here we go back to our previous session, that in the previous session we talked about you should not open any links that you get from an email. You should not open any malicious links or any suspicious link you get from SMS, because more often than not, either that URL will ask you for your personal information, or they will in some way or other way they will try to trick you in installing an exe file or any other file which may be which may be infected with malware or ransomware. And we should always follow safe practices when browsing web. So what do I mean by that? As previously I was talking about that we should always keep our windows updated. In the same way, if we are using any browser, albeit Chrome, Firefox, Safari, we should always keep it updated, because in browsers too they add security patches. Like previously, if you go to an HTTP site, they wouldn't warn you about it. But nowadays, if you try to access a HTTP site, you will first get a warning, then you can get past. So when you get a warning, you will be alerted that this site is insecure. I mustn't um, send my personal information, maybe login ID, password, because HTTP sites are insecure. So your browser already warns you about it. So you should always update your browsers for such functionality. Also, now these are the tips for enterprise, or suppose you have a small startup. Any user in your network, you should always give them a least privileged accounts. What do I mean by least privileged account? So they have the minimum privileges that they need to perform. Suppose I'm a database administrator. So what my administrator will give me the permissions that I can only access database, I can only access the internet and nothing else. I'm gaining no access to any other things. I cannot access the file system, all that. I can only access the database. So why do we have to implement such strict controls? As we talked about worms before, that worms can spread to the network. So if we are not cautious and we give all of our users every access to every resources, so worms may spread across your network and infect all other machines. So you should always follow the principle of least privileged accounts. So minimum privilege required to do the job should be provided, not anymore. And also, you should disable PowerShell. So many of you may be acquainted with command prompt. So PowerShell is just an advanced version of command prompt in which you can maybe delete files, you can edit system configuration, and do all sort of stuff with PowerShell. So PowerShell is just CMD but better. So if you don't do shell scripting or some sort of stuff, you should always try to disable PowerShell, because more often than not, when you download any malicious file unknowingly, if you execute it, it's basically a PowerShell script. You double click it and the script runs. Either they create a backdoor, they try to delete your files or gain access to the files. And also, we should restrict users' abilities to install run unwanted software applications. Suppose if you are using Windows 10, you have created multiple accounts. Many of you have noticed that whenever you try to run an exe file, they try to ask for your password, that this program wants to make changes to your computer, allow or disallow. So that control should be present so that users may not accidentally install some malicious software. So always we should restrict the users abilities to install or not. Suppose I have a guest account in Windows 10, I have to enter the administrator password before I can install any program. Enable personal firewalls on workstations. So this is already covered, as if you enable Windows Defender, they also have a firewall in place. And also we should implement a strict USB external device usage policy. So what do I mean by that? So suppose you are a startup or an enterprise, you should have strict policies on how many USB drives can you connect to your machine. In the previous session, I also mentioned that it's a very common technique that someone keeps a flash drive in parking lot. Some employee may be interested in that. He will think that I can take this pen drive, I can format it and use for my own personal uses. So what he will do is he will connect that pen drive in his PC, and more often than not, it contains some sort of virus or maybe even ransomware. So to restrict this, so that employees don't insert any random flash drives into their enterprise workstations, so the organization should always have strict external device usage policy, so that they can't use thumb drives here. Employee data at rest and data in transit encryption. So Windows also has this feature of encrypting your file system. So you should always encrypt your files, because suppose you have all your crucial data in your laptop and someone steals your laptop. So what they can do is they can use some imaging tools to get all your personal data. So if you encrypt your information in your laptop, even if they get hold of your data, it would be in a cryptic format. They won't be able to make out what's here. So it's always a good idea to use encryption at rest, meaning in your computer or your laptop, and encryption in transit. So what do you mean by encryption in transit? So you may notice there are two types of site, one that starts with HTTP and the second one that starts with HTTPS. So HTTPS encrypts all your data. Suppose you are using facebook.com, you are entered your username and password in the login page. So facebook.com is an HTTPS site. So all the data you are sending, your username and password from your computer to the Facebook web server, that traffic would be encrypted. Your data would be encrypted. But if it's an HTTP site, your your passwords, your username, everything would be sent in plain text. So any malicious attacker or any hacker can intercept your data and can read your password in plain text. And that doesn't happen with HTTPS sites. And we should always, if we have some policies in our organization for execution of certain attachments, we should always restrict .exe files, DLL files, because all of these files most commonly contain viruses. And let me tell you, ransomware works on a core principle of infecting a .dll file, dynamic link library files. So if an organization restricts that no DLL files and no exe files could be sent as attachments, or no exe file has been allowed to execute on a machine, so they are more often they're not secure from all these malwares. And also here VAPT comes into play. Suppose you have a network and you have many computers in that network, and you think that this network is very secure, no hacker can attack this and no one can steal the information, it's very foolproof. But you should always consider getting a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing done on your network, so you get an idea that whether your network is secure or insecure, whether your computers are secure or insecure, and what are the vulnerabilities in your network and how to fix those. So here, as you may have noticed, I have talked about as a end user, that you are just a user, you're not a part of an organization, you need to protect yourself, and also about the organization. Now this slide is all about the prevention tools, meaning the tools that you as an end user can implement in your computers to protect yourself against malwares or ransomwares. So one is Hitman Pro, Bitdefender Anti-Crypto, Malwarebytes, Trend Micro, Microsoft Enhanced Mitigation, and Experience Toolkit. So all these are antivirus softwares that you can use. But if you don't want to go for any of this, you can always use the genuine copy of Windows and always use the Windows Defender in it. So that was it from by my side. So I would like to pass on to Pranjali.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Naman.
Welcome.
And I think we have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the question is, what would be the source on how worms attack or infect the system?
So basically, it's very similar to viruses. Suppose you're trying to download a software. So for example, Filmora for free, which is a paid software. You have watched a YouTube video, you got a link from that YouTube video, you have downloaded that exe file and you execute it. So you get the free software, but also with that, there is a worm attached to that exe file. So what that does that worm stays dormant in your machine, and then it replicates across your entire network and gets downloaded into the every computer in your network. So it's very similar to virus. Only the difference is it can spread across your network. So most commonly these are packaged with the exe files, any free softwares you get. So you should always be cautious when you're opening an exe file or even MSI files, Microsoft installer files.
Okay. Thank you. So I will just open the room for quick questions if there are more. Let's just give it a second. If there are any questions, you can place it in the chat section. Okay, so there's a quick another one.
How do we detect? Yeah, this is a very good question. So if you have any third-party antivirus solution, you can always scan your computer. If you don't have any third-party antivirus solution, you also have Windows Defender. I think I can also demonstrate you here. So you just have to type in security. And here, if you go in viruses and threat protection, you can get an option of quick scan. So what it does, it is quickly scans your entire computer and tells if there is any malware, any sort of adware or Trojan present in there. So this is a very quick and effective way. Or you can also use third-party antivirus softwares. Any other questions? As for Mac, I have not used Mac. I have never used Mac, so I am not very much aware of how you can detect threats. But I think there are also antivirus solutions available for Mac too, so you can go for third-party ones. But I am aware of Windows Defender, which you can see here. As we can see, the scan has been completed, and there are no current threats here. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah, no, I think your screen is
Okay.
stuck with the sales and support part.
Let me share again.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So what we have to do is you just have to type in security, and this window opens up. So this is basically Windows Defender, which is renamed to Windows Security. You have to go to viruses and threat protection. Here you get an option of quick scan. So what it does is it scans your entire computer for any viruses or adwares or any sort of malicious files that are present that may harm your computer. So either you can go for Windows Defender, which is already present in Windows, or you can, if you want additional protection, you can always use any third-party solution. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah.
We will let this scan proceed. So as we can see, we have ransomware protection, virus and threat protection, and everything is installed by default in Windows. So it's a great idea to use Windows Defender itself. So so as we can see, our virus and threat protection scan has been run, and there are no current threats, no current malware in here. As for Mac, I have no experience using Mac, so I think you can still use third-party antivirus like maybe Avast or Quick Heal. I'm not aware of any stock security scanner like we have a Windows Defender for Windows 10.
All right then. So